1 year had passed since Kim Tae-ho crushed Sergeant Krell Knockskull in 6 seconds, and now the final battle for Seoul was about to begin. The resistance controlled most of the underground areas and several neighborhoods above ground, while alien forces were trapped in heavily fortified positions surrounded by an increasingly confident and well-armed human army. Commander Vex Tar looked out from his command center at the top of the government building and saw a city in open rebellion resistance. Fighters moved freely through streets that had once been patrolled by his soldiers. Anti-alien graffiti covered every wall, and children who used to cower in fear now threw rocks at alien vehicles. The population that was supposed to be broken and obedient had become a unified force determined to drive out their oppressors. The commander knew he was losing the war on Earth, but he refused to accept defeat. He had one final option that would deny the humans their victory, even if it meant destroying everything they were fighting for. The Vorthan mothership in orbit above Seoul carried weapons powerful enough to turn the entire city into a crater of molten glass. "If I cannot rule these humans, then no one will vex," Tar told his remaining officers. "Prepare the orbital bombardment system. We will burn Seoul to ashes and let the galaxy see what happens to species that dare to rebel against the Vorthan Empire." But the commander had made the same mistake that had cost the aliens everything else. He had underestimated human intelligence and determination. Electronics expert Park Dong-hyuk had spent months studying captured alien technology with a team of brilliant engineers and computer programmers. They had learned how alien systems worked, and more importantly, they had found ways to break into them. While Vex Tar was preparing to destroy the city Dong-hyuk was sitting in the morning sun was rising over New Seoul when the Vex soldiers dragged Captain Kim Woo-bin through the dusty streets. His hands were tied behind his back, and his green beret uniform was torn and bloody from 3 days of torture. But his eyes still burned with defiance as hundreds of human colonists were forced to line the streets and watch. The reptilian aliens had ruled this world for 3 years now. Their scaled skin gleamed in the sunlight as they marched in perfect formation. Each Vex soldier stood over 7 feet tall with razor-sharp claws and cold yellow eyes that showed no mercy. They had conquered dozens of worlds across the galaxy, but humans had given them the most trouble. Captain Kim had been leading the resistance on New Seoul for 2 years. He was only 30 years old, but already a legend among the human fighters. The aliens had finally caught him during a raid on their weapons depot. Now they wanted to make an example of him that would break the spirit of every human in their empire. In the center of the main settlement, they had built a wooden platform. A thick rope hung from a metal beam above it. Thousands of humans were forced to gather in the square. Vex soldiers with energy rifles stood at every corner, making sure no one could leave. High above them, huge screens had been set up to broadcast this moment to every human world under alien control. Commander Sektar stepped forward. He was the military leader of all Vex forces in this sector. His scales were darker than the others, and battle scars covered his massive frame. He wore the black armor of a Vex general, and his yellow eyes glowed with cruel satisfaction. The alien commander spoke into a microphone that would carry his words across the galaxy. His voice was deep and harsh like grinding metal. He spoke in Galactic standards so every species could understand. "Humans of all worlds, listen carefully. This creature before you thought he could fight against the mighty Vex Empire. He believed his pathetic resistance could challenge our superior civilization. Today you will see what happens to those who dare oppose us." Captain Kim was forced up the wooden steps to the platform. The rope was placed around his neck, but still he did not beg or cry. He stood straight and tall despite his injuries. The crowd below was silent, but tears ran down many faces. Commander Sektar continued his speech. "We have shown you mercy for 3 years. We could have destroyed your worlds completely. Instead, we gave you the chance to serve under our rule. But some of you chose rebellion. Some of you chose death. Let this execution serve as a final warning. Submit completely or face the same fate as this terrorist." The alien gestured to Kim Woo-bin with one clawed hand. The human captain looked directly into the main broadcast camera. His voice was clear and strong even with the rope around his neck. "My name is Captain Kim Woo-bin of the Human Defense Corps. I am a Green Beret and I have served my people with honor. To every human watching this broadcast I say, do not mourn for me. Do not let them break your spirit. Remember that we are not slaves. We are not animals. We are human beings, and we will never surrender." Commander Sektar laughed at these words. Your defiance ends here, human. Your species will learn to kneel before the Vex Empire. But Kim was not finished speaking. He looked straight into the camera, and his next words would be remembered forever. You think killing one soldier will break us. You do not understand. Humans at all. We are not just fighters. We are family. And when you hurt our family, we do not just get angry. We become something you have never seen before. The captain paused and took a deep breath. His final words rang out across the square and across the galaxy. To my brother Hyunwoo, if you are listening, remember our promise. Remember what we swore when we were children. No matter how far apart we are, no matter what happens, we are still brothers. Make them pay for this. Make them all pay. Commander Sektar had heard enough. He signaled to his soldiers, and they activated the mechanism. The platform dropped away beneath Kim Woo-bin's feet. The crowd gasped, and many people screamed. The rope went tight, and the brave captain's life ended in front of millions of watching eyes. The alien commander smiled with satisfaction. Let this image burn into your memories, humans. This is the fate of all who oppose the Vex Empire. Return to your homes and remember what you have seen today. But something unexpected happened in the moments after the execution. Instead of breaking, down in despair, the human crowd began to change. The tears stopped flowing and were replaced by something much more dangerous. Cold fury began to build in every human heart. On distant worlds, millions of people watched their screens in stunned silence. In military bases across human space, soldiers stopped what they were doing and stared at the terrible scene. On the bridge of a warship hidden in deep space, Admiral Park Hyunwoo watched his adopted brother die and felt something break inside his chest. The admiral was commander of humanity's most secret military unit called the Ghost Division. His ships could become invisible and strike without warning. He had been planning careful missions against alien supply lines. But now, all those plans were forgotten. Now there was only rage and the need for revenge. Communications officer Lee So-young noticed something strange on her instruments. Every human military frequency across known space was suddenly active. Ships that had been silent for months were broadcasting again. The same message was being sent in dozens of different languages, but the meaning was always the same. Remember Kim Woo-bin. Remember New Seoul. No mercy. The Vex soldiers began clearing the square and taking down their equipment. They believed their demonstration had been successful. Commander Sektar was already planning his report to the High Command about how the execution had crushed human resistance. But they had made a terrible mistake. They thought humans were like other species they had conquered. They thought fear would make them surrender. They did not understand that humans respond to cruelty not with submission, but with uncontrollable rage. Across the galaxy, human military units were already changing course toward Vex territory. Resistance cells on occupied worlds were preparing for suicide missions. Peaceful colonies were arming themselves for war. The execution of one Green Beret had lit a fire that would burn across the stars. Captain Kim Woo-bin was dead, but his sacrifice would not be forgotten. His final words had awakened something primal in the human spirit. The Vex Empire had just made the worst mistake in their long history. They were about to learn what it really meant to fight against humanity. Admiral Park Hyunwoo stood frozen on the bridge of his flagship watching the transmission end. The screens went dark, but the image of his brother hanging from that rope was burned into his mind forever. His crew watched him carefully, knowing that their commander had just witnessed something that would change everything. The Admiral and Kim Woo-bin had grown up together on Earth. They were not blood brothers, but had been adopted by the same military family after their parents died in the first Vex attacks. They had promised each other as children that they would always protect humanity no matter what the cost. Now one brother was dead, and the other was about to keep that promise. Lieutenant Commander Bae Jin-ho was the first to speak. He had served under Admiral Park for 5 years and had never seen his commander show such emotion. "Sir, what are your orders?" The Admiral turned away from the screens and looked at his bridge crew. These were the best soldiers in the Human Defense Corps. They had trained for years to operate the most advanced warships ever built. The Ghost Division was humanity's secret weapon designed to strike at alien forces without warning. Change course immediately, Park Hyun-woo said quietly. Set course for Vex territory maximum speed. Sir, that will take us away from our assigned patrol route. Communications Officer Lee So-young said carefully. We are supposed to monitor alien supply convoys in the Outer Rim. The Admiral's voice became hard as steel. Our new mission is simple. Every Vex installation, every Vex ship, every Vex soldier in this sector dies. No prisoners, no mercy, no exceptions. The bridge crew exchanged glances, but no one questioned the order. They had all seen the execution broadcast. They all felt the same cold rage building inside them. Chief Engineer Park Min-ki began calculating jump coordinates while Weapons Officer Yoon Seo-jin started checking their ammunition supplies. But something strange was happening across human space. Even before any official orders were given, military units everywhere were making the same decision. On the battleship Incheon, Captain Lee Dong-wook watched the execution and immediately ordered his ship toward Vex territory. On the cruiser Busan, Major Kim Hye-jin did the same thing. It was as if every human military commander had the same thought at the same moment. The time for defensive operations was over. The time for careful strategy was over. Now there was only one mission that mattered: make the aliens pay for what they had done. On Earth, the Human Defense Council was meeting an emergency session. General Cho Min-ho tried to maintain order as reports flooded in from across the galaxy. Every human fleet was abandoning their assigned positions and heading toward alien space. Even civilian ships were joining the movement. "This is madness," shouted Defense Minister Han Ji-woo. "We cannot fight the entire Vex Empire with uncoordinated attacks. We need to negotiate. We need to find a diplomatic solution." But General Cho shook his head. The time for diplomacy ended when they put that rope around Captain Kim's neck. Look at these reports. Every human world is mobilizing. Every military unit is moving toward enemy territory. This is not a planned operation. This is something deeper. The general was right. What was happening could not be explained by normal military thinking. Humans across the galaxy were responding to the execution like a single organism that had been attacked. The death of one soldier had awakened something primal in the entire species. On the occupied worlds, the reaction was even more dramatic. Resistance cells that had been careful and cautious for years suddenly became aggressive beyond belief. On New Seoul, Sergeant Kang Ji-hai gathered the surviving resistance fighters in an abandoned building near the execution site. "You all saw what they did to our captain," she said to the 20 fighters who remained. "They think this will break us. They think we will hide and surrender. They are wrong." The resistance fighters looked at their new leader with fire in their eyes. These were ordinary people who had become warriors. Teachers, mechanics, farmers, and students who had taken up arms to fight the alien occupation. Now they were ready to die for revenge. "Tonight we hit every Vex patrol in the city," Kang Ji-hai continued. "Tomorrow we attack their supply depot. Next week we take their command center. We are going to show them what happens when you murder a human soldier." Similar scenes were playing out on dozens of occupied worlds. Resistance leaders who had spent months planning careful sabotage missions were now ordering direct attacks on alien positions. The psychological change was remarkable. Fear had been replaced by fury, and caution had been replaced by desperate courage. On the mining world of Kepler Prime, Resistance Commander Colonel Yoon Tae-hyun received a coded message from New Seoul. It contained the details of Captain Kim's final words and a simple instruction. "Remember our brother. Make them pay." Within hours, every resistance cell in the sector was coordinating their attacks. Hidden communication networks that had taken years to establish were now carrying constant traffic. Weapons caches that had been saved for emergencies were being distributed to anyone willing to fight. The speed of the human response caught the Vex completely off guard. Their intelligence networks had always shown human resistance as disorganized and weak. Individual cells operating in isolation with no real coordination between worlds. But now suddenly, every human military unit was moving with perfect synchronization. Commander Sektar was reviewing reports in his headquarters when the first signs of trouble began. His aide Major Velkoth brought him a data pad showing unusual, human fleet movements throughout the sector. "Sir, our long-range sensors are detecting multiple human warships moving toward our territory," the aide reported. "These are not normal patrol patterns. It appears to be a coordinated offensive movement." Sektar studied the data with growing concern. The humans had never shown this level of organization before. Their military had always been defensive-focused, on protecting their own worlds rather than attacking alien positions. This change in behavior was unexpected and troubling. "How many ships?" he asked. "At least 50, confirmed, sir. But the numbers keep growing. And these are not just military vessels. We are detecting civilian ships, armed freighters, even converted passenger liners, all heading toward our space." The Vex commander felt a chill run down his spine. In all his years of conquest, he had never seen an entire species mobilize this quickly. Usually, after a demonstration of force like the execution, occupied populations became more submissive, not more aggressive. "Send a message to High Command," Sektar ordered. "Request immediate reinforcements for all installations in this sector." It appears the human execution may have had unintended consequences. But it was already too late. Across human space, the awakening was complete. Every man, woman, and child who had watched Captain Kim Woo-bin die was now united by a single purpose. The Vex Empire had wanted to break human spirit, but instead they had forged it into an unbreakable weapon. Admiral Park Hyun-woo checked his navigation display and saw they would reach Vex territory in 18 hours. His Ghost Division ships were already going invisible, preparing for the kind of warfare the aliens had never experienced. Soon they would learn what it meant to face humans who had nothing left to lose. 18 hours after watching his brother die, Admiral Park Hyun-woo stood on the bridge of his flagship as it approached the first Vex target. The mining station at Kepler 442b appeared on their screens as a massive industrial complex floating in the darkness of space. Hundreds of alien workers and soldiers moved between the metal structures, while human slaves labored in the dangerous mining operations. "All ships report ready, sir," announced Lieutenant Commander Bae Jin-ho. The Ghost Division consisted of 12 stealth dreadnoughts and 48 phantom fighters. Each ship was equipped with experimental cloaking technology that made them invisible to most sensors. They could appear inside enemy defenses without warning and disappear just as quickly. Admiral Park studied the tactical display showing the mining station's defenses. Energy shields protected the main structures while automated weapons platforms watched for approaching threats. Under normal circumstances, attacking such a well-defended target would require a massive fleet and result in heavy casualties. But these were not normal circumstances. The Ghost Division had been designed for exactly this type of mission. More importantly, every human aboard these ships was now driven by a burning desire for revenge that made them more dangerous than they had ever been before. "Begin the attack," the Admiral ordered quietly. What happened next would be remembered as the most devastating surprise attack in military history. The Ghost ships decloaked simultaneously, appearing inside the mining station's defensive perimeter, like deadly phantoms materializing from thin air. The Vex soldiers had no time to react before human weapons began tearing their positions apart. The lead dreadnought opened fire with its main batteries, sending streams of plasma directly into the station's command center. Secondary explosions rippled through the structure as power systems overloaded and atmosphere began venting into space. The Phantom fighters swept through the industrial areas, destroying weapons platforms and disabling the energy shields. But this was not random destruction. Every target had been carefully chosen to eliminate military threats while preserving the areas where human prisoners were held. Admiral Park had studied the station's layout for hours, planning an attack that would save as many human lives as possible while killing every alien soldier present. "Boarding teams deploy," ordered Major Song Min-jun from the assault cruiser Seoul. Heavily armed human marines launched from the Ghost ships in small attack craft that landed directly on the station's docking bays. They moved through the corridors, with deadly efficiency eliminating Vex guards and freeing human prisoners. The entire battle lasted exactly 7 minutes. When it ended, every Vex soldier on the mining station was dead, but over 300 human slaves had been rescued alive. The industrial complex itself was still intact, but all its weapons and defenses had been destroyed. Admiral Park opened a communication channel to the station's emergency beacon. His message would be transmitted across all Vex military frequencies, ensuring that word of the attack spread quickly through their command structure. "This is Admiral Park Hyunwoo of the Human Ghost Division. You executed my brother Captain Kim Woo-bin on New Seoul. You broadcast his death across the galaxy thinking it would break our spirit. You were wrong. Now you will learn what it means to face a human who has lost everything he cared about." The Admiral paused, letting his words sink in before continuing. "Every Vex installation in this sector will burn. Every Vex soldier will die. And when I am finished here, I am coming for your homeworld. You wanted to show the galaxy what happens to humans who resist. Now I will show the galaxy what happens to aliens who murder our family." The transmission ended, and the ghost ships began disappearing back into the darkness of space, but they did not go far. Within 6 hours, 3 more Vex installations had been reduced to burning wreckage. The pattern was always the same. The human ships appeared without warning, eliminated all military targets, rescued any human prisoners, and vanished again before reinforcements could arrive. The psychological impact on Vex forces throughout the sector was immediate and devastating. These aliens had conquered dozens of worlds through superior technology and overwhelming firepower. They had never faced an enemy that could strike from invisibility with such precision and fury. On the Vex command ship, Dominion Fleet Admiral Zektor studied the attack reports with growing alarm. His aide, Captain Mortok, brought him the latest intelligence on the human raids. "Sir, we have lost 4 major installations in the past 12 hours, the aide reported nervously. "The attacks show perfect coordination and inside knowledge of our defensive systems. Somehow the humans are anticipating our every countermove." Admiral Zektor studied the tactical displays showing the locations of the destroyed facilities. There was definitely a pattern to the attacks, but he could not understand how the human ships were moving so quickly, or how they knew exactly where to strike. What the Vex commander did not know was that communications officer Lee So-young had been intercepting alien military transmissions for months. Her team of expert codebreakers had cracked most of the Vex encryption systems, allowing the Ghost Division to listen in on enemy communications in real time. "They are ordering reinforcements to protect the remaining facilities," Lee So-young reported to Admiral Park. 3 heavy cruisers are moving to defend the fuel depot at Proxima Station. Then we will hit them before the reinforcements arrive, the Admiral replied calmly. "Plot an intercept course. Launch in 30 minutes. The Rehear. Fuel depot was one of the most important Vex installations in the sector. It supplied the alien fleets with the exotic matter needed to power their faster-than-light drives. Destroying it would cripple their ability to move ships around their empire. But the Vex had learned from the previous attacks. The depot was now protected by additional weapons platforms, and a squadron of alien fighters patrolled the surrounding space. They believed this would be enough to detect and destroy any attacking human ships. They were wrong again. The Ghost Division approached the depot from multiple directions, using the gravity well of a nearby planet to mask their approach. When they decloaked, they were already inside the defensive perimeter with weapons charged and targeting systems locked on. The alien fighters tried to respond, but they were designed to fight visible enemies. Against ships that could appear and disappear at will, they were helpless. The Phantom fighters eliminated them in minutes, while the dreadnoughts concentrated on the main depot structure. This time, Admiral Park decided to send a different kind of message. Instead of just destroying the facility, he ordered his Marines to capture the station commander alive. Vex Colonel Drakvar was dragged before a communication screen where he faced the human admiral directly. "Tell your high command what you have seen here today," Admiral Park said coldly. "Tell them that this is only the beginning. Tell them that humans do not forgive and we do not forget. Most importantly, tell them that Captain Kim Woo-bin was my brother and his death will be avenged 1,000 times over." The alien colonel trembled as he looked into the human's eyes and saw something that chilled him to his core. This was not just military strategy or political revenge. This was personal fury that would never be satisfied until every Vex in the galaxy paid the price for one man's execution. After the transmission ended, the depot was completely destroyed, and the surviving Vex personnel were left floating in escape pods for their own forces to rescue. The Ghost Division disappeared. Once again, but not before Admiral Park broadcast one final message to all enemy forces in the sector. We are the ghosts of humanity. We are the shadows of your nightmares. We are the price you pay for murdering our family. Sleep well, aliens, because we will be coming for you in the darkness. The message spread through Vex military networks like wildfire. Reports began filtering back to their high command about human ships that appeared from nowhere, struck with devastating effect and vanished like phantoms. The psychological impact on alien forces throughout the sector became severe, with many units reporting decreased morale and increased desertion rates. But Admiral Park was just getting started. The Ghost Division had proven that humans could strike at will against any Vex target. Now it was time to coordinate with the resistance forces on the occupied worlds and show the aliens what happened when all of humanity united for war. On New Sol, the news of Admiral Park's attack spread through the resistance network like wildfire. Sergeant Kang Ji-hai gathered her fighters in the ruins of an old factory on the outskirts of the main settlement. The building had been destroyed during the initial Vex invasion, but its basement still provided a secure meeting place. Brothers and sisters, she said to the 27 resistance fighters who had answered her call. You have heard the reports from across the sector. The Ghost Division is striking at alien installations throughout Vex space. Our captain's death has awakened something in every human heart. Now it is time for us to do our part. The fighters looked at their new leader with fire in their eyes. These were ordinary people who had been transformed by 3 years of occupation into deadly warriors. Among them was Dr. Choi Young-soo, who had been treating wounded civilians until the aliens destroyed his hospital. There was teacher Park Sun-mi, who had been secretly training children in human history and culture. There was mechanic Lee Jun-ho, who had been sabotaging Vex vehicles for 2 years. Tonight we hit the planetary governor's compound, Kang Ji-hai announced. Intelligence reports show that Commander Sektar himself will be attending a strategy meeting there. The alien who ordered our captain's execution will finally face justice. The resistance had been watching the compound for months, learning the UI, patrol schedules, and identifying weak points in the defenses. But they had never attempted a direct assault because it seemed impossible to survive. Now survival was not the most important thing. Revenge was all that mattered. The compound was located in the center of the settlement, surrounded by high walls and protected by automated defense systems. Normally it housed over 200 Vex soldiers and administrative personnel, but intelligence gathered by resistance infiltrators showed that most of the garrison had been redeployed to protect other installations after Admiral Park's attacks began. We have one advantage they do not expect, continued Kang Ji-hai. They think the execution broke our spirit. They believe we are hiding in fear. When we attack, they will be completely surprised because they think humans are too weak to strike back. The plan was simple but dangerous. 3 teams would attack simultaneously from different directions, drawing the defenders' attention, while a 4th team infiltrated through the compound's water treatment facility. The infiltration team would eliminate the communication center, preventing the aliens from calling for reinforcements, while the assault teams fought their way to the main building. Dr. Choi Young-soo had prepared special explosive devices using medical supplies and salvaged alien technology. These bombs would be more than enough to destroy the compound's main structures. Teacher Park Sun-mi had been training civilians in urban combat tactics for months, and she would lead the assault on the main gate. As darkness fell over New Sol, the resistance fighters moved into position. They wore black clothing and carried whatever weapons they had been able to steal or improvise over the years. Most had only simple projectile weapons, but their determination more than made up for their lack of advanced equipment. The attack began at exactly midnight. Explosions erupted at 3 different points along the compound's perimeter as the assault teams struck simultaneously. Alarms began wailing as Vex guards rushed to respond to the multiple breaches in their defenses. But the real attack came from the infiltration team led by mechanic Lee Jun-ho. Using detailed blueprints stolen months earlier, they had entered through the water treatment facility and were already inside the compound when the diversionary attacks began. They moved through the underground tunnels with deadly silence, eliminating any guards they encountered. The Vex soldiers were trained to fight against other military forces with standard weapons and tactics. They had never faced human fighters who used their intimate knowledge of local terrain and infrastructure to devastating effect. The resistance members knew every building, every street, every hiding place in their own settlement. They could move, unseen, through areas the aliens considered secure. Teacher Park Sunmi's assault team fought their way through the main gate using explosives to clear the defensive positions. The Vex guards who tried to stop them discovered that humans fighting for their homeland were far more dangerous than any enemy they had faced before. The human fighters showed no fear of death and continued attacking even when wounded. Meanwhile, the infiltration team reached the communications center and began planting Dr. Choi's explosive devices. They had studied the alien technology for years and knew exactly which systems to target for maximum effect. Within minutes, the compound's ability to contact the outside world was completely destroyed. The battle raged for over an hour, but the outcome was never in doubt. The resistance fighters had spent 3 years learning to hate their oppressors, and now that hatred gave them strength beyond anything the aliens could understand. They fought with the desperate courage of people who had nothing left to lose. When the main building fell, the surviving Vex personnel tried to surrender, but the humans were not interested in prisoners. This was not a military operation, it was an execution. Every alien in the compound died that night, including Commander Sektar, who was found hiding in his private quarters. But Sergeant Kang Ji-hai was not finished with her revenge. She dragged the commander's body to the execution platform where Captain Kim had died just days before. Using the compound's own broadcast equipment, she transmitted a message to every Vex installation on the planet. This is Sergeant Kang Ji-hai of the New Soul Resistance. The alien who murdered Captain Kim Woo-bin is dead. His compound is destroyed and every soldier under his command has been eliminated. This is what happens when you underestimate human fury. This is what happens when you harm our family. The message was recorded and transmitted throughout the sector using resistance communication networks. Within hours, similar uprisings began on dozens of occupied worlds. The success on New Sol had shown that even heavily defended alien positions could be overrun by determined human fighters. On Busan, Prime Resistance leader Colonel Yoon Tae-hyun received the transmission and immediately began coordinating attacks on every Vex garrison on the planet. His forces had been preparing for months but had lacked the courage to begin open warfare. Now they had both inspiration and coordination. "Tonight we strike everywhere at once," he announced to his assembled fighters. "Every alien installation, every collaborator, every symbol of their occupation must burn. Show them what human fury looks like." The coordinated attacks that followed became known as the Night of Fire. Across 17 different worlds, human resistance movements launched. Simultaneous assaults on alien positions. The psychological impact was devastating, because the Vex had believed their demonstrations of force had crushed human resistance permanently. Major Park Yoon-ji, a former military engineer who had been leading resistance operations on Kepler Prime, developed new weapons using stolen Vex technology. Her improvised explosive devices proved devastatingly effective against alien armor and vehicles. She shared her designs through the resistance networks, allowing fighters on other worlds to build similar weapons. What made the uprisings particularly effective was their perfect coordination. Using hidden communication networks established over years of occupation, resistance cells shared intelligence weapons and tactical information across multiple star systems. When the Vex attempted to reinforce one world, they found themselves facing attacks on 3 others. The speed and ferocity of the human uprisings caught the Vex completely off guard. Their military doctrine, developed through conquest of dozens of other species, assumed that occupied populations would remain largely passive as long as they were properly intimidated. But humans, they discovered, responded to intimidation by becoming more dangerous, not less. Intelligence reports reaching the Vex High Command described human fighters who continued attacking even when mortally wounded, who sacrificed themselves to destroy strategic targets, and who fought with a level of tactical innovation that seemed almost supernatural. The aliens had conquered many species, but they had never encountered anything like human determination fueled by righteous fury. On the Vex capital world of Dominion Prime Fleet, Admiral Zektor studied the reports with growing alarm. In just 4 Days the humans had gone from a defeated occupied population to a galaxy-wide rebellion that was destroying Vex installations faster than they could be reinforced. "How many worlds are affected?" he asked his intelligence chief, Colonel Mortok. "At least 47 confirmed uprisings, sir, with more being reported every hour. The humans appear to have activated sleeper cells that we never knew existed. Their coordination suggests years of preparation that our intelligence networks completely missed." Admiral Zektor felt a chill of fear run through his scaled body. The Vex Empire had ruled through superior technology and overwhelming force for centuries. But now they faced an enemy that fought not for territory or resources, but for something much more dangerous. The humans were fighting for family, for honor, for the memory of their dead. And that kind of enemy, he realized, might be impossible to defeat. Admiral Song Kite stood on the bridge of the massive battleship Indomitable as it dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Vex territory. Behind him stretched the largest human fleet ever assembled in the history of space warfare. Over 300 ships of every class, from nimble destroyers to massive dreadnoughts, hung in perfect formation against the backdrop of distant stars. This was not an official military operation authorized by any government. Instead, it represented something unprecedented in galactic history. Every human world, every colony, every military organization had contributed ships and crews to this volunteer fleet. They had come together for one purpose only: to avenge Captain Kim Woo-bin and ensure that no species ever again made the mistake of underestimating human resolve. "Communications from all ships report ready, sir," announced Captain Yu Seo-jin, his second in command. "Weapons-loaded shields, at full power, and all crews standing by for combat operations." Admiral Song studied the tactical displays showing Vex defensive positions throughout the sector. Intelligence reports indicated that the aliens had concentrated their remaining forces around key strategic points, hoping to make any human advance as costly as possible. They still did not understand that humans fighting for revenge were willing to pay any price. "Open a channel to all enemy installations," the Admiral ordered. His message would be broadcast across every Vex military frequency in the sector, ensuring that every alien soldier heard his words clearly. "This is Admiral Song, Kite commanding the combined human fleet. We are not here to conquer your territory or steal your resources. We are here because you made a mistake. You executed Captain Kim Woo-bin and broadcast his death across the galaxy, thinking it would break our spirit. Instead, you awakened something that should have remained sleeping." The Admiral paused, letting his words sink in before continuing. "You have 1 hour to surrender unconditionally. Release all human prisoners, evacuate your military installations, and prepare to face trial for war crimes. Those who surrender will be treated according to galactic law. Those who resist will be destroyed without mercy." The transmission ended and the fleet began moving deeper into Vex space. But the aliens were not ready to surrender. They had ruled this sector for decades through superior technology and had never been successfully challenged by any species. They could not believe that humans were capable of defeating their carefully prepared defenses. Commander Velkoth was in charge of the main defensive line protecting the inner Vex territories. From his flagship destroyer, he commanded over 100 alien warships and countless defensive platforms. His forces had been reinforced over the past week as reports of human attacks spread throughout the sector. "Sir, the human fleet is advancing on our positions," reported his tactical officer, Major Draxen. "Long-range sensors indicate approximately 300 vessels of various classes. They appear to be maintaining standard attack formation." Commander Velkoth studied the enemy fleet with professional interest. The humans had managed to assemble an impressive force, but they were still outnumbered by his defensive positions. More importantly, Vex ships were generally superior to human vessels in terms of weapons and armor. This should be a straightforward defensive battle. "All ships prepare for combat," he ordered. "Launch fighter squadrons and power up the defensive platforms. We will show these humans why the Vex Empire has never been defeated in open battle." But as the two fleets approached each other, something unexpected happened. The human formation suddenly changed as dozens of ships seemed to vanish from Vex sensors. Admiral Park's Ghost Division had been waiting for this moment to reveal themselves after days of hit-and-run attacks throughout the sector. The stealth ships appeared directly inside the Vex defensive perimeter, striking at command ships and weapons platforms before the aliens could react. At the same time, the main human fleet opened fire with everything they had. The battle that followed lit up the darkness of space with energy beams and explosive detonations that could be seen from several star systems away.